Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss Pre-Market Report for March 10th, 2016. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss, with analysis for the current session. Here's a look at the ES. This is the rollover contract, ESM6 now, and we should be seeing more volume come into this contract throughout the day and heading into Friday afternoon. But the early analysis of this contract, what we were looking for before was a potential short squeeze ahead and a push into new highs. And we had the pullback into the pivot range for the week. We talked about a potential retest of the previous month's high price, which was 68 on the previous contract, 59.5 on this contract. And the idea was to look for a squeeze beyond the previous week's close price. Again, in the previous contract being 1994, 1995, and this contract being 83.75. So beyond this area, likely squeezes price into the next upside targets. We could see a move as far as 2030, which is the current primary target for the week. Obviously, this week had a wider pivot range, so after the previous week's rally, we were looking for some sort of pullback and perhaps a hold. Now we have a very tightly coiled range here, very clear price action within this range. Expansion from this range will spark the next key move. Above any acceptance above the previous week's close likely squeezes beyond 1998 and into the next upside target ahead, which could be as high as 2030 by the end of the week. Now, taking a look at the intraday time frame here, again, this is the contract that's being rolled over right now, but 1998 1988 is where we currently are. Any failure to hold above 85.5 here opens up a return back towards 78.5. Again, we have kind of a rounded off pattern on these lows here where prices were attempting to go to new lows and those shorts weren't really getting paid. Now we have higher highs, higher lows all coming into play, and beyond the 1985s here opens the door to much more strength. So any retest perhaps back toward 1985s or even as low as 78s in that zone could offer a buying opportunity the rest of the session into those next upside targets. The primary target for the day would be 1997 with a shot at seeing the 25% expansion target at 2001. Now, taking a look at the crude oil chart, here is crude in a daily time frame. The previous session we had another roll-up day after a roll-down day. We had a major squeeze here. Prices were rolled back against that range. Any shorts that got in were also rolled back up, taking out the previous session's highs. And now we're sitting here with a very quiet overnight trade. Basically, the expectation was for continued overall strength, likely in the 40.5. Any pullback should be considered buying opportunities, even as low as 35.25 or even down into the midpoint of the key range at 34.63. We didn't quite get that far down, but either way, the expectation was that pullbacks should be considered buying opportunities as long as price can stay above 34.63, and that would imply a continuation into 40.5. We have 39.17 as an MCV POC from a previous period of time. That could be the next sticky point for crude oil. If we drop into or rally into 39s, we could see price kind of sit there ahead of a continuation into 40.5. A failure to hold above 37.57 right now would be a short-term rotation back toward previous lows with a major LVN here at 36 that will likely be defended by bulls for a continuation higher. Taking a look at the intraday time frame for crude oil, watch the previous session's high price, 38.49. Any push beyond that level, short term, early on especially, if there's a rejection, could open up a quick move back downward toward the previous RTH low, which is going to be 37s here. Again, any pullback likely to be defended, but right now, continue to watch that previous high. Early test above that zone, any early rejection could lead to a quick move back downward toward that zone. Acceptance above 38.49 opens up a continuation into 39.18, 39.35. All right, taking a look at gold now. Here's gold. This is what we talked about before. We were looking for any pullback into as low as the 1233.30 upon a failure to hold above this 1272.40. When it failed to hold this level, I mentioned we could be looking at a 30 handle decline ahead. Once price dropped down in the previous session here in the trading room we were talking about, and that was an area to consider as a zone to take some profits. And then any continuation through the previous pivot range low there opens up a pathway to 1233s. So right now you can see the weekly pivot point here at 1255.90 has gone offered short term. I think if price pushes back above that level, we could see another squeeze ahead, but holding below that zone implies a continuation to the downside into 1233.30. Again, remember, if prices are going to reject above 1272s, the implication would be a return to value being 1233. So the primary short-term move is to the downside, but should price reach that area, given the current uptrending market, you may see a defense and another attempt at squeezing to new highs. Looking at the NQ now in a daily time frame, what we were looking for before was another squeeze event, very similar to what we've seen over the recent weeks here. You can kind of see after this squeeze here, we kind of had a range. A failed lower low led to a squeeze up. We kept seeing any 1 or 2 day pullbacks also leading to squeezes. This was more of a kind of quiet range downward. It still held the pivot range, which has been defensed in the uptrending market by bulls. And I mentioned that any push beyond the previous week's close here could squeeze this thing into the next HV and above 4,400. We have the primary weekly target at 44.14 given the current week's low. So we could see a very nice squeeze event ahead, especially given how tightly coiled price has been over the last several days. Breaking out from that coiled up range could have some significant energy attached to it. So right now above 43.14.5 implies a continuation to the upside toward 4,400 to 44.14. Failure to see acceptance above 43.13.5 opens up perhaps a retest down below and perhaps even as low as that LVN here, the LVN being the 42.15 level. So a test of 42.15 could be a first test buy. However, right now it seems to be squeezing, or the initial attempt to squeeze. Looking at the NQ now on an intraday basis again, this is the rollover contract now, the NQ M6, so the June 2016 contract. We should see more volume come in throughout the session, and especially most of the volume being already over by noon Friday. So right now, again, you can see how tightly coiled this price action was, especially recently here. We're starting to see that push up. Acceptance above 4,300 continues the upward price trajectory into 43.64 perhaps, and as high as 44.14 by the end of the week. So that's what we'll be looking for as we head into the rest of the session. Good luck and trade well.